There is a photograph that exists in almost every history book, every encyclopedia, and every school in the world. You have seen it. It was taken in July of 1969. In the frame you see the Lunar Module, a strange spider-like machine made of gold foil and aluminum. Below it is the grey cratered surface of the moon, and in the background, hanging in the black velvet of space, is the Earth, a blue and white marble, beautiful, fragile. If you look at that photo, you are looking at all of humanity. You are looking at the 3 billion people who were alive in 1969, living their lives on that blue ball. You are looking at the kings, the dictators, the farmers, and the children. You are looking at everyone who has ever lived and died, and you are looking at Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, who are inside that golden spider descending to the surface. But there is one person missing. There is one human being who is not in the frame. One man who is not on the Earth and not on the moon. He is the man holding the camera. His name is Michael Collins. And at the moment that photo was taken, he was the loneliest human being who had ever lived. While the world cheered for the two heroes walking on the dust, Michael Collins was alone in a small metal capsule orbiting the dark side of the moon. He was cut off from all radio contact. He was cut off from sunlight. He was cut off from humanity. If something went wrong down there, if the engine of the Lunar Module failed to light, he had a set of secret orders that terrified him. He would have to leave them. He would have to turn his ship around, fire his thrusters, and fly back to Earth alone. He would have to return as the survivor of a graveyard mission, leaving his two best friends to suffocate in the silence of the moon. This is not the story of the footprints. We know that story. This is the story of the man who waited in the car, the designated driver of the Apollo program. It is a story of absolute, crushing silence, a story of duty, and a story of finding peace in the darkest place the universe has to offer. Tonight we climb into the command module with him. We feel the vibration of the Saturn V rocket. We watch the Earth shrink until it is nothing but a star. And we prepare to cross the threshold into the unknown. July 16th, 1969. The sun rises over the swampy coast of Florida. The air is thick, humid, and heavy with the smell of salt water and jet fuel. The cicadas are buzzing in the sawgrass. But today, the loudest sound is not nature, it is anticipation. Standing on Launch Pad 39 is the greatest machine ever built by human hands. The Saturn V. It is impossible to describe the scale of it. It is a skyscraper filled with explosives. It stands 363 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty. It weighs 6 million pounds. It is a white obelisk, gleaming in the morning light, wreathed in the vapor of boiling liquid oxygen. Ice falls from its sides in sheets, shattering on the metal grating below. Inside this beast, 3 men are strapped into their couches. Neil Armstrong, the commander. Cool, distant, a man of few words. Buzz Aldrin, the Lunar Module pilot. Brilliant, intense, a mathematician of orbital mechanics. And Michael Collins, the command module pilot. Mike Collins is different. He is the easygoing one. He has a quick wit and a relaxed smile. He is the glue that holds the crew together. He is a test pilot, yes, but he is also a man who loves art, who loves painting, who loves quiet moments. He is lying in the right-hand seat. His job is technically the most complex. He has to fly the command module named Columbia. He has to navigate to the moon. He has to separate the landing craft, wait for them, catch them when they return, and fly everyone home. He is the ticket home. But right now, he is just cargo. The countdown is ticking T-minus 60 seconds. The astronauts can feel the rocket breathing beneath them. The fuel pumps are spinning up, shaking the entire structure. It feels like sitting on top of a volcano that is about to erupt. Hundreds of switches, dials, and breakers. Everything is green. T minus 10 seconds. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4. The 5 massive F1 engines at the bottom of the rocket ignite. The sound is not heard, it is felt. It is a physical wave that hits the chest. The spectators 3 miles away feel their clothes shaking. The birds in the marshes take flight in a panic. Liftoff. The clamps release. The beast begins to move. For the men inside, it is violence. The rocket doesn't glide. It hammers its way through the atmosphere. It shakes. It rattles. It feels like a train derailing at high speed. Collins is pressed into his seat. The G-forces build. 2 Gs. 3 Gs. 4 Gs. His chest feels like it has lead weights on it. It is hard to breathe. Outside the small window, the blue sky of Florida turns into the dark indigo of the upper atmosphere. Then, suddenly, it turns black. They are leaving the world. The first stage burns out and falls away. Bang! A massive jolt. The second stage ignites. Smooth, silent power. And then, the third stage pushes them into orbit. Silence. The engine cuts off. The shaking stops. The pencil floating near Aldrin's knee starts to drift in the air. They are in space. Below them, the Earth is huge, filling the entire window. Clouds, oceans, continents, but they are not staying here. Apollo 11, you are go for TLI. Translunar injection. This is the moment of commitment. They fire the engine one more time. They break the grip of Earth's gravity. They are no longer circling the planet. They are leaving it. The speed increases to 25,000 miles per hour. They are moving faster than a rifle bullet, and as they accelerate, Michael Collins looks out the window. He sees something that no human should ever have to see. He sees the Earth getting smaller. It shrinks. First, it is a massive wall of blue. Then, it is a basketball held at arm's length. Then, a baseball. Then, a marble. He realizes with a profound sense of clarity that everything he has ever known, loved or hated is on that receding ball. His wife, Patricia, his children, his house, his car, the grass, the wind, the ocean. It is all behind him and ahead. Ahead is a grey, dead rock, a place of dust and silence, and he is the one driving the bus. The journey to the moon takes 3 days. 3 days of floating in a tin can the size of a minivan. The media likes to portray space travel as constant action, but the reality is that it is mostly quiet. It is a long, slow drift through the void. The spacecraft, Columbia, is attached to the Lunar Module, Eagle. Together, they look like a strange metallic insect. To keep the sun from overheating one side of the ship, they set up a passive thermal control roll. The barbecue roll, the ship rotates slowly, 3 revolutions per hour. Round and round. Sun, Earth, Moon. Darkness. Sun, Earth, Moon. Darkness. It is hypnotic. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere is calm. The 3 men float in their socks. The air smells of sterile plastic, ozone, and a faint hint of citrus from the wet wipes. They eat their dehydrated meals. Shrimp cocktails, spaghetti, coffee. They listen to music, but there is a heaviness in the air. They don't talk much about the mission. They talk about sports. They talk about the news. They are professionals. They are compartmentalizing the fear. But Michael Collins has a specific burden. He looks at Armstrong and Aldrin. He knows what they are about to do. They are going to walk on a new world. They are going to be immortal. And he is going to be the waiter, the chauffeur. He doesn't resent it. In his autobiography, he wrote that he was perfectly happy with his seat. He was not jealous, but he was worried. He knew the machine better than anyone. He knew the command module was reliable. It had a big engine. It had a heat shield. It was a solid ship. At the Lunar Module, the Eagle, it was a fragile, spider-legged contraption made of foil and thin sheets of metal. You could punch a hole in the wall with a screwdriver. It had a single engine to lift off from the moon. One engine, no backup. If that engine failed, if a valve stuck, if the fuel didn't ignite, Neil and Buzz would be stranded on the moon. They would have oxygen for 2 days, and Collins would be in orbit, listening to them die. He would be 60 miles above them, traveling at 3,000 miles per hour. He would be able to see them through his sextant. He would be able to talk to them, but he would not be able to help them. He had no landing gear. He could not go down. He played the scenario over and over in his mind. The secret terror, the moment when Mission Control would tell him, "Mike, there is nothing we can do. Come home." He imagined the flight back alone, 3 days of empty seats beside him, 3 days of silence. The re-entry, the press conference. Where are they, Mike? Why did you leave them? He pushed the thought away. He focused on the checklists. He focused on the stars. He was the navigator. He used a sextant, an instrument similar to what sailors used in the 1700s, to measure the angle between stars and the Earth's horizon. He fed the numbers into the primitive computer. The computer had less processing power than a modern musical greeting card. He had to trust it. On the 3rd day, the view changed. The Earth was now just a bright star in the distance. And the moon. The moon was a monster. It grew huge in the window. It wasn't the flat white disk you see from your backyard. It was a sphere. A 3-dimensional world of grey plaster, scarred by billions of years of cosmic violence. It looked forbidding. It looked hostile. It looks like a place where you shouldn't be, Collins thought. They were approaching the lunar orbit insertion burn. This was the first critical moment. They were coming in fast. If they didn't slow down, they would slingshot past the moon and fly out into deep space, lost forever. They had to fire the main engine, but there was a catch. To do this burn correctly, they had to do it on the far side of the moon. They had to do it when they were out of contact with Earth. Apollo 11, this is Houston. You are go for LOI, signal loss in 2 minutes. Roger, Houston. The 3 men strapped into their couches. The ship slipped behind the edge of the moon. The radio went dead. Static. Static. For the first time in 3 days, the voices from Florida were gone. They were alone. Collins watched the timer, burning in 3, 2, 1. He hit the button. The engine roared. The ship shook. For 6 minutes, they were braking. If the engine burned too long, they would crash into the moon. If it burned too short, they would skip off into space. It had to be perfect. Collins watched the Delta V numbers on the computer screen shut down. The engine cut. Silence returned. They waited. They checked the velocity. They were captured. They were in orbit. As they came around the other side of the moon, the radio crackled back to life. Apollo 11, this is Houston. Do you read? Read you loud and clear, Houston. We are in the slot. The first hurdle was passed. They were circling the shark. Now the real work began. July 20th, 1969, the day of the landing. The atmosphere inside Columbia changed. The relaxed banter was gone. The movements were sharp, precise. Armstrong and Aldrin put on their heavy, bulky moon suits. They floated into the tunnel that connected the 2 ships. Collins stayed in the command module. He was wearing his lighter flight overalls. He floated at the entrance of the tunnel. "You guys take care," he said. It was a casual goodbye for a monumental moment. "See you later, Mike," Neil said. They shook hands. It is strange to shake hands with someone when you don't know if you will ever see them again. The hatch was closed. Collins turned the handle, locking the mechanism. He was now sealed in his own ship. On the other side of the metal door, Neil and Buzz were powering up the Eagle. Collins floated back to his pilot's couch. He put on his headset. Eagle, this is Columbia. I have you on the tether. Roger, Columbia. They were still connected. They flew around the moon again. Apollo 11, you are go for undocking. Collins flipped a switch. Clunk, the latches released. The springs pushed the two ships apart. Collins used his small thrusters to back Columbia away. He looked out the window. There it was, the Lunar Module. It looked incredibly fragile. A gold and black geometric shape spinning slowly against the grey craters. It looked like a toy. Inside that toy were his friends. The Eagle has wings, Armstrong radioed. Collins grabbed his camera. He took pictures of the Eagle. He inspected it visually. Looks like you've got a fine machine there, Neil. Landing gear is down and locked. Thanks, Mike. The distance between them grew. A few meters. 100 meters. A mile. The Eagle fired its descent engine and began to drop toward the surface. Collins remained in his high orbit. He watched them go. He was now the observer, the shepherd. He had a checklist of things to do. He had to keep Columbia running. He had to track the Eagle with his sextant. But his mind was focused on the radio. He listened to the drama unfolding below. He heard the alarms. 12:02 alarm. 12:01 alarm. He heard the tension in the voice of Charlie Duke, the Capcom in Houston. He heard Neil Armstrong's voice, calm but focused. Fuel is low. 30 seconds. Collins held his breath. He was gripping the checklist so hard his knuckles were white. Land. Please land. And then, Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You've got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Collins exhaled. They made it. They were safe. Fantastic, he whispered into the empty cabin. But his relief was short-lived. Landing was only half the battle. They still had to leave. And now, a new reality began to settle in for Michael Collins. The Eagle was sitting on the moon. Columbia was moving at orbital speed. Every minute, Collins was moving further away from them. He passed over the landing site. He tried to see them, but they were too small. Just a speck of gold dust in a sea of grey. Then, he passed over the horizon. He lost the signal. The radio voices of Neil and Buzz cut off. The voice of Houston cut off. He was alone. This is the moment. This is the core of the story. Michael Collins is now on the far side of the moon. For 48 minutes of every orbit, he is completely cut off from the rest of humanity. Let's try to understand the scale of this isolation. On Earth, even if you are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or in the heart of Antarctica, you are still connected. You can tune a radio. You can see the stars that other people see. You are on the same rock. But Collins is not on the rock. He is behind the moon. The moon itself, a mass of rock 2,000 miles wide, is blocking all radio waves from Earth. There is no Houston. There is no news. There is no static. There is only silence. Absolute, pure silence and darkness. When he is on the night side of the moon, the sun is blocked. The Earth is blocked. The only light comes from the stars. And the stars don't twinkle here. They are hard, unblinking points of ice. Collins later wrote about this feeling. He said, "I am alone now, truly alone, and absolutely isolated from any known life. I am it. If a count were taken, the score would be 3 billion plus 2 over on the other side of the moon, and 1 plus God knows what on this side. Think about that math. 3 billion plus 2. V's 1. He is the singular outlier of the human species. Does he panic? No. This is the surprise. In the mythology of Apollo, people assume Collins was terrified or lonely in a sad way, but he wasn't. He felt exalted. He felt a sense of ownership. The command module, Columbia, was his cathedral. It was his home. He took off his headset. Why wear it? Nobody was talking. He floated to the window. He looked down at the craters passing by. the dark, ancient scars of the universe. He made coffee. He ate a snack. He realized that for these 48 minutes he was the master of his own domain. I feel this powerfully, he wrote, not fear or loneliness, but awareness, anticipation, satisfaction, confidence, almost exaltation. The silence wasn't empty, it was full. It was full of peace, away from the noise of the world, away from the politics, the wars, the Vietnam protests, the screaming crowds, just him and the universe. He was the secret king of the cosmos. But there was a shadow in the room, a small, nagging thought that he couldn't suppress: the empty seats. He looked at the two empty couches beside him, the empty flight suits floating in the lockers. Right now, Neil and Buzz were preparing to walk on the surface. They were becoming heroes. But to Mike, they were just his friends, and they were in danger. He checked the in-flight data file. It contained 18 different contingency plans for the rendezvous, 18 ways to rescue them if they launched wrong. He memorized them. He practiced them. He knew that if they couldn't get off the surface, if the ascent engine failed, he would have to circle the moon again and again. He would have to listen to them on the radio as their oxygen ran out. He would have to be the one to turn the key and ignite the engine to go home. He would be the survivor, the man who came back alone. He knew that if that happened, he would be a marked man for the rest of his life. He wouldn't be a hero. He would be a living monument to tragedy. He imagined the press conferences, the eyes of Neil's wife, Janet, the eyes of Buzz's children. "I am sweating," he admitted later. "I am sweating like a nervous bride." The 48 minutes ticked by. The darkness began to lift. The rim of the moon began to glow. Earthrise. The blue marble popped up over the gray horizon. The radio crackled. "Columbia, this is Houston. Do you read?" Loud and clear, Houston. The silence was broken. The connection was restored. He was back in the world of men. But for a moment, he had been somewhere else. Somewhere no one had ever been. He had been the loneliest man in the universe, and he had found that he didn't mind the company. For nearly 24 hours, Collins orbited the moon alone, while Neil and Buzz planted the flag, while they read the plaque, while they jumped in the low gravity. Collins kept the watch. "I am like a mother hen," he joked, waiting for her chicks. He tried to spot them with the sextant. He failed. He slept fitfully. He wrote in his journal. He checked the systems. He was the lifeline. He was the anchor. If Columbia failed, they were all dead. If Columbia drifted, they were all dead. He had to be perfect. He kept the ship warm. He kept the oxygen flowing. He kept the guidance computer aligned. He was preparing the nest for their return. The world remembers the words, "one small step," but the world forgets the words Michael Collins whispered to himself as he watched the landing radar. "Keep talking to me, baby." He was talking to the ship. He was talking to the Eagle. He was talking to his friends. He was the silent partner in the greatest dance in history. And soon the hardest part would begin. The ascent. The Eagle had to fly. It had to launch from the surface, find Columbia in the vastness of space, and dock. Two bullets hitting each other in the dark. If they missed, Collins would have to dive down to catch them. He was ready. He checked his switches. He tightened his straps. He waited for the call. Eagle is away. The reunion was coming. Or the disaster. July 21st, 1969. Michael Collins is orbiting the moon. He is traveling at 3,500 miles per hour, upside down, facing the craters. Below him, on the Sea of Tranquility, history has been made. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin have walked on the surface. They have planted the flag. They have taken the photos. But now comes the most dangerous moment of the entire Apollo program, the ascent. Most people forget this part. They think getting to the moon is the hard part, but getting off is harder. When they launched from Earth, they had the Saturn V, a massive team of thousands of engineers, computers, and backup systems. Now Neil and Buzz are sitting in a tin can called the Eagle. They are 240,000 miles from the nearest mechanic. To get back to Collins, they have to launch the upper stage of the Lunar Module. It has one engine, the Ascent engine. It is a simple machine, about the size of a large vase. It uses hypergolic fuels, chemicals that ignite instantly when they touch. There is no spark plug. There is no ignition key. It is designed to be fail-safe, but it has never been tested on the moon before. If it doesn't light, if a valve gets stuck, if the fuel lines are frozen, the engine won't fire. The Eagle will not rise. Neil and Buzz will be stranded. They have enough oxygen for about 2 days. They will not starve. They will suffocate. And Michael Collins will be the witness. He knows this. He knows this. He has been thinking about it for 6 months. It is his secret terror. He knows that somewhere in a drawer in the White House, President Richard Nixon has a speech prepared, a speech written by William Safire, titled In Event of Moon Disaster. It begins, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace." Collins is terrified of being the man who has to fly home alone. He imagines the empty seats beside him. He imagines the press conference. He imagines looking at Neil's wife, Janet, and Buzz's wife, Joan, and trying to explain why he left their husbands behind in the dust. "I am not going to commit suicide," he wrote in his journal. "I am coming home, but I will be a marked man for the rest of my life." So, as he comes around the dark side of the moon for the 25th time, he is praying. He is listening to the static. "Eagle, this is Houston." The radio crackles. "You are go for liftoff." Collins holds his breath. He checks his radar. He is ready to dive down and catch them if they don't get high enough. He is the catcher in the rye, waiting at the edge of the cliff. 9, 8, 7. On the surface, Armstrong pushes the button. Valves open. Chemicals mix. Wham! The engine fires. It is silent in the vacuum, but the vibration kicks the astronauts in the back. Explosive bolts sever the connections to the landing legs. The bottom half of the Eagle, the descent stage, stays on the moon. It is still there today, a golden monument. The top half shoots up. "We're off," Armstrong shouts. "Look at that stuff fly." Collins sees the blip on his radar screen. It is faint. A tiny green dot moving against the black, but it is moving. They are coming up. The chase is on. Rendezvous in space is not like driving a car. It is a paradox. If you want to catch up to someone in front of you, you don't speed up. If you speed up, your orbit gets higher and you actually slow down relative to the ground. To catch up, you have to slow down, drop to a lower orbit, and let the physics pull you forward. It is a counterintuitive dance of mathematics and nerves. For the next 3 hours, Collins is the busiest man in the universe. He is the active pilot. Armstrong and Aldrin are just passengers in a rising elevator. Collins is the one driving the bus to meet them. He is using the sextant, a telescope device, to track the sparkling speck of gold that is the Eagle. He enters numbers into the computer. Verve 37. Now 49. He fires his thrusters. Small bursts of gas to align the ship. "I have you visually, Collins radios. You're looking good. Roger, Columbia. We see you too. You're the brightest star in the sky." The two ships draw closer. They are on the dark side of the moon now. The sun is blocked. The only light comes from the thrusters of the Eagle. It looks like a golden bug crawling up a wall of black velvet. They approach the docking. This is delicate. The Eagle is unaerodynamic. It is flimsy. If they hit too hard, they could tear the foil. They could puncture the pressure hull. If they can't dock, Collins will have to do a spacewalk EVE. He will have to open the hatch, float over to the Eagle, grab Neil and Buzz, and drag them back through the vacuum on a tether. He hopes he doesn't have to do that. The ships align. Collins looks through the docking window. He sees the target on the roof of the Eagle. He slows down to a crawl, inches per second. The probe, a metal spike on the nose of Columbia, reaches out. It aims for the drogue, a cone on the roof of the Eagle. Metal touches metal. Plunk. The capture latches fire, but they are not done. The ships are swaying, retracting. Collins says. A gas bottle fires, pulling the probe back, dragging the two ships together until their seals touch. Bang! The heavy docking latches engage. 12 of them. The sound rings through the hull, a solid metallic thud. The golden bug is caught. "We got you," Collins whispers. "We got you." The relief washes over him like a physical wave. The terror is gone. The math worked. The engine worked. They are together again. The tunnel is pressurized. Collins hears the hiss of air filling the gap between the ships. He floats to the hatch. He turns the handle. He smells something strange. As the hatch opens, a pungent odor fills the cabin. It smells like wet ashes or spent gunpowder. It is the smell of the moon. Neil and Buzz are covered in it. The grey lunar dust is clinging to their suits, their boots, their hands. They float through the tunnel. They look exhausted. Their eyes are red. Their faces are covered in stubble. They have been awake for almost 24 hours. They have walked on another world, but they are smiling. Collins grabs Armstrong by the shoulders. He wants to hug him, but in zero gravity, a hug is awkward. You just bounce off each other. So he grabs his hand. He grabs Aldrin's hand. It is a moment of profound humanity. 3 men, floating in a tin can, 240,000 miles from home. "You guys made a mess," Collins jokes, pointing at the dust. He is the clean one. He is the one who stayed in the ivory tower while they played in the dirt. But he doesn't care. The empty seats are filled. The flight suits are no longer ghosts. The team is whole. "Let's go home," Armstrong says. They transfer the cargo. The rock boxes, the film canisters, the samples of the moon. These rocks are worth more than diamonds. They transfer their personal items. And then it is time to say goodbye to the Eagle. The Lunar Module has done its job. It lifted them off the surface. It brought them to safety. But now it is dead weight. They cannot take it back to Earth. It has no heat shield. They close the hatch again. "Jettison," Collins commands. The springs push the Eagle away. Collins watches it drift off into the darkness. It looks lonely, a hollow shell of gold and black, floating silently against the craters. Eventually, its orbit will decay. It will crash back into the moon, destroying itself on the very world it conquered. Or perhaps it is still up there, a ghost ship orbiting forever. We don't know for sure. Now Columbia is alone again, but inside, it is crowded. 3 men, 3 egos, 3 friends. They have one last hurdle. TEI, trans-Earth injection. They have to fire the big engine one more time to break out of lunar orbit and fall back to Earth. If the engine fails now, they will circle the moon until they die. They go behind the dark side again. The radio cuts out. "See you on the other side, Houston," Collins says. They wait. The computer counts down. The engine ignites. Roar. It pushes them into their seats. It burns for 2.5 minutes. Shutdown. They check the velocity. They are going fast enough. They have escaped the moon's gravity. They come around the limb of the moon for the last time, and there it is, Earth. It looks like a welcoming beacon, a blue eye staring back at them. "Apollo 11, this is Houston. We have you coming home." The long coast begins, 3 days back. The mood in the capsule is different now. The tension is gone. The adrenaline crash hits them. They sleep. They sleep deeply, floating in their bags, drifting through the void. Collins takes the watch while they sleep. He floats by the window. He looks back. The moon is getting smaller. It was a monster when they arrived. Now it is just a ball of plaster again. He looks at the Earth getting bigger. He thinks about what they have done. He realizes that the mission wasn't really about the moon. It was about the Earth. We left our home to discover how beautiful it is. He thinks about the billions of people down there. The wars, the borders, the arguments. From here, it looks so simple, so unified. I really believe that if the political leaders of the world could see their planet from a distance of 100,000 miles, their outlook would be fundamentally changed. He later wrote, the all-important border would be invisible, that noisy argument suddenly silenced. He is the philosopher of the crew. Armstrong is the pilot. Aldrin is the scientist. Collins is the poet. He watches the stars. He rotates the ship for the thermal roll. Sun, Earth, Moon, darkness. Sun, Earth, Moon, darkness. The rhythm of the cosmos. He is content. He is the quiet hero, the man who held the coat while the others danced. And he is okay with that. July 24th, 1969, re-entry day. They are approaching Earth at incredible speed, 25,000 miles per hour. That is 7 miles per second. If you blink, you miss a country. They have to hit a very narrow corridor in the atmosphere. If they come in too steep, the G-forces will crush them and the heat will melt the ship. If they come in too shallow, they will skip off the atmosphere like a stone on a pond and bounce out into deep space, never to return. The angle must be precise. Within 1 degree, Collins is at the controls. He aligns the ship. They jettison the service module, the cylinder that held the engine, and the supplies. Now, they are just a tiny cone, the command module, the only part of the massive Saturn V that is coming back. They turn the ship around so the heat shield, the thick, resin-coated bottom, is facing forward. They hit the atmosphere. It begins silently. A faint pink glow outside the window. Then the roar begins. The air, slamming into the blunt end of the ship, turns into plasma. It is hotter than the surface of the sun, 4,000 degrees. The heat shield ablates. It burns away, carrying the heat with it. Chunks of flaming material fly past the windows. Inside, the G-forces build. 6 Gs. It feels like an elephant standing on their chests. And then, the blackout. The ionized air around the ship blocks all radio signals. Apollo 11, Houston, we are losing signal. See you on the other side. Static. Static. For 3 minutes, or was it 4? The world waits. In mission control, the flight directors are smoking cigarettes, pacing the floor. On the aircraft carrier, USS Hornet, waiting in the Pacific Ocean, the sailors scan the sky. Inside the capsule, Collins, Armstrong, and Aldrin are silent. They are riding a meteor. The windows are glowing bright orange. The white paint on the outside of the ship is turning black. They are falling, slowing down. 25,000 miles per hour, 10,000 miles per hour, 5,000 miles per hour. The fire fades. The G-forces ease. The sky turns from black to blue. The altimeter spins. 20,000 feet. Drogs, 2 small parachutes, shoot out. They stabilize the ship. Mains. 3 massive orange and white parachutes bloom. They jerk the capsule. It swings like a pendulum. They are floating. The hiss of the air vents opens. Collins smells the air. It is humid. It is thick. It smells of salt and ocean. It is the smell of life. Splash. They hit the Pacific Ocean. The capsule tips over, leaving them hanging upside down for a moment before the balloons inflate and right it. They bob in the waves. Helicopters are circling. Divers jump into the water. A diver knocks on the window. He gives a thumbs up. Collins smiles. They are back. But the journey isn't over. The isolation hasn't ended. Because they have been to the moon, the scientists are afraid. Afraid of moon germs. Afraid of alien plagues. So the hatch doesn't open fully. The diver throws in 3 isolation suits. Strange, grey rubber garments with gas masks. They have to put them on inside the capsule. They climb out into the raft, looking like aliens themselves. They are hoisted up to the helicopter. They are flown to the carrier. They don't shake hands with the captain. They don't hug their wives. They walk straight into a modified Airstream trailer, the MQF, Mobile Quarantine Facility. They lock the door from the inside. They are back on Earth, surrounded by thousands of sailors, cameras, and the President of the United States. But they are behind glass. Collins looks out the window of the trailer. He sees the ocean, he sees the sun, but he cannot touch it. He is still the lonely man. Just 3 men in a box again. The quarantine lasts for 21 days, first in the trailer on the ship, then in a specialized building in Houston. It is a strange time. They are the most famous men in history, yet they are prisoners. They watch their own landing on television replays. They answer questions through a glass wall. For Collins, it is a time of reflection. He thinks about the 48 minutes on the dark side. He thinks about the silence. He realizes that he has changed. The overview effect, it is a term astronauts use. The cognitive shift that happens when you see Earth from space. You realize how small it is, how fragile. Most astronauts come back with a renewed sense of spirituality or environmentalism. Collins comes back with a sense of peace. He is not haunted by what he missed. He is grateful for what he saw. I carried the fire, he thinks. That is the title of his future book. He carried the fire of humanity to the darkness, and he brought it back. He looks at Neil and Buzz. They are changed too. Neil is quieter, retreating into himself. Buzz is restless, struggling with the weight of fame. But Mike is steady. He was the fulcrum, the balance point. He realizes that his role, the lonely waiter, the designated driver, was the most human role of all. He represented everyone who stays behind, everyone who waits, everyone who supports the explorers. Without him, there is no landing. Without him, there is no return. The quarantine ends. The door opens. They step out into the fresh air. The world wants to touch them. Parades in New York, parades in Chicago, a world tour. But amidst the noise, Michael Collins often finds himself looking up, not at the moon, but at the spaces in between, the dark patches. He knows what lives there, silence. And he knows that silence is not something to be afraid of. It is a friend. It is the place where you find yourself. History has a way of simplifying things. We like binaries, good and evil, black and white, up and down. We remember the first. We forget the second, and we ignore the third. We know the names of the men who walked, Armstrong and Aldrin. But for decades, Michael Collins was the forgotten astronaut, the answer to a trivia question, who was the other guy? But as time passes, his legacy is growing. In a world that is increasingly noisy, increasingly connected, increasingly chaotic, the idea of solitude is becoming precious. We look at Collins now, and we don't see a man who missed out. We see a man who had the ultimate luxury, quiet. Total, absolute quiet. He is the patron saint of introverts, the hero of the background. He teaches us that you don't have to be the one planting the flag to be important. You don't have to be in the spotlight to be a hero. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is sit in the dark, hold the keys, and keep the engine running for your friends. Sometimes, The most important job is simply to be there, to be the constant, to be the way home. As we drift toward the end of our journey tonight, think about that small ship circling the moon. Think about the man in the window, eating his coffee, watching the craters roll by. He is happy. He is not lonely. He is alone. And there is a difference. Loneliness is sad. Aloneness can be beautiful. He is the guardian of the night. And he is watching over us. Imagine traveling 240,000 miles through the void. Imagine seeing the curvature of the Earth, the grey dust of the moon, and the infinite black of deep space. Imagine risking your life every second for 8 days. And then, imagine coming home to a trailer when Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong, and Buzz Aldrin splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969. Their journey didn't end. In fact, a strange new imprisonment began. Because humanity was terrified of the unknown, terrified of moon germs, alien bacteria, or cosmic plagues, the three heroes were treated like biological hazards. They were pulled from the ocean wearing gas masks and shoved immediately into the MQF, the Mobile Quarantine Facility. It was a modified Airstream trailer, a shiny silver tube, sealed airtight, sitting on the hangar deck of the aircraft carrier, USS Hornet. Inside, it was cramped. It smelled of chemicals and 3 men who hadn't showered properly in a week. Outside, the world was celebrating. The President of the United States, Richard Nixon, was on the ship. The sailors were cheering. The bands were playing. But Collins and his crew could only watch through a small square window. They were back, but they were separated. There is a famous photo of Nixon speaking to them. He is leaning in, smiling. The astronauts are on the other side of the glass, smiling back. But the glass is a barrier. It is a symbol. They had seen something that Nixon had never seen. They had touched a reality that the sailors outside could not comprehend. They were changed men. For Michael Collins, this was a continuation of his role. In the command module, he had been isolated by space. Now, in the quarantine trailer, he was isolated by glass. He sat on the small beige sofa inside the trailer, watching the ocean waves through the window. He was safe. Gravity was pulling him down into the cushion. The air was thick and heavy, but in his mind, he was still drifting. He closed his eyes and saw the craters. He saw the Earth rise. He realized that the physical distance had closed, but a psychological distance had opened up. He was a stranger on his own planet. Tonight, we explore that distance. We walk with Michael Collins through the madness of the Giant Leap Tour. We see how the man who loved silence dealt with the loudest applause in history. And we learn why, when offered the chance to go back and walk on the moon himself, he said the word that shocked NASA, no. The trailer was flown to Houston. Then it was driven on a flatbed truck to the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center. The astronauts were transferred to a larger prison, the LRL, Lunar Receiving Laboratory. It was a building designed to keep monsters in. The walls were thick. The air pressure was lower than outside, so if a door opened, air would rush in, not out. It was sterile. White walls, white floors, harsh fluorescent lights. They lived there for 3 weeks. They were not alone. There were doctors, cooks, and janitors locked in with them. Volunteers who had agreed to the quarantine. But the most important residents of the LRL were not the humans. They were the mice. Hundreds of white mice. They were the test subjects. The scientists took the lunar dust that Neil and Buzz had brought back. They ground it up. They sprinkled it on the mice's food. They rubbed it on the mice's skin. And then everyone waited. If the mice died, it meant the moon was toxic. It meant the astronauts were carrying a plague. It meant they might never be released. Michael Collins watched the mice. He was the clean astronaut. He hadn't walked on the surface. He hadn't rolled in the dust, but he was trapped just the same. Every morning he checked the cages. "How are the mice?" he would ask. The mice were fine. They were happy. They were fat. The moon was dead. There were no germs, no monsters. Just dust. It was a time of surreal boredom. Here were the three greatest explorers in history, men who had just completed the Odyssey of the Millennium, and they were playing ping pong. They were reading magazines. They were eating cafeteria food. Collins used this time to write. He processed the journey. He noticed that Neil Armstrong was becoming quieter. The weight of being the first man was already settling on his shoulders. Neil was a humble engineer. He didn't want to be a celebrity. He wanted to solve problems. Now he was a global icon. Buzz Aldrin was different. He was restless. He paced. He was analyzing the mission, thinking about what went wrong, what went right. The silence of the quarantine was hard for him. But Mike was content. He liked the quiet. He liked the structure. He had done his job. He had carried the fire. He had brought them home. He didn't need the applause. He realized that he had achieved a state of grace. He had looked into the abyss, and the abyss hadn't blinked. Finally, on August 10, 1969, the doctors declared them safe. The doors of the LRL hissed open. The fresh air of Texas rushed in. It was hot, humid, and smelled of cut grass and gasoline. They walked out. They thought the hard part was over. They were wrong. The rocket launch was physics. The re-entry was aerodynamics. But what came next was chaos. The world tour. NASA and the US State Department had planned a victory lap. It was called the Giant Leap Tour. 23 countries, 28 cities, 38 days. The schedule was brutal. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Mexico City, Bogota, Buenos Aires, London, Paris, Tokyo. They traveled on Air Force One. Imagine the scene. Ticker tape parades in New York City, millions of people lining the streets, the air filled with confetti, looking like a snowstorm of paper. The noise was deafening. Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins. People screamed. People cried. People threw flowers. Michael Collins sat in the convertible limousine, waving. He smiled. He was charming. He was the diplomat of the crew. But inside, he felt a strange detachment. He looked at the faces in the crowd. He noticed something beautiful. In every country, in every language, the people didn't say, "You did it, Americans." They said, "We did it. We." The human race. For a brief moment in 1969, the Cold War was forgotten. The borders dissolved. The differences in religion and race faded. A species had left its home planet and returned. It was a collective victory. Collins felt this deeply. It validated his thoughts in the capsule. The overview effect was real. The Earth was one thing, but the tour was exhausting. Handshake after handshake, banquet after banquet. The Queen of England, the Pope, the Emperor of Japan. They all wanted a piece of the magic. Neil and Buzz were the stars. They were the ones who had touched the moon. Mike was the third man. Reporters would ask him, "Was it lonely? Were you jealous? Did you wish you had walked?" He answered them patiently 1,000 times. "No, I wasn't lonely. No, I wasn't jealous. I was happy to have a seat." And he meant it. But he began to see the cracks in his friends. The pressure on Neil was immense. He was being treated like a god. He retreated further into his shell. The pressure on Buzz was different. He struggled to find a purpose after the peak. What do you do after you walk on the moon? Mike watched them with brotherly concern. He realized that his seat, the lonely seat, had saved him. He wasn't the first man. He wasn't the target of the obsession. He was just Mike. He could walk down the street and people might not recognize him. He could go to a restaurant and eat a meal in peace. He realized that anonymity was a gift. He had seen the universe, but he didn't have to carry the weight of it on his back forever. He could slip away, and that is exactly what he planned to do. Let's pause the tour for a moment and go back to the window of Columbia. What did Michael Collins actually see, and how did it change him? Psychologists call it the overview effect. It is a cognitive shift that happens when you see the Earth from space. On the ground, our world is vast. It is endless. It is broken into countries, cities, neighborhoods. We fight over lines on a map. We fight over resources. But from 200,000 miles away, the Earth is not vast. It is tiny. Collins described it as being the size of his thumbnail. I could put my thumb up and hide it, he said. Everything I ever knew behind my thumb. But it wasn't just it was the fragility. He saw the atmosphere. On Earth, the sky looks infinite. It looks like a huge blue ocean above us. From space, the atmosphere looks like a thin, terrifyingly delicate ribbon. A contact lens over an eye. If you blow on it too hard, it might vanish. He saw the blackness of space. It wasn't just dark. It was aggressive. It was cold. It was dead. And in the middle of that death, there was this glowing blue and white jewel. Life. Collins realized that the Earth was not a rock. It was a spaceship. We are all astronauts on a spaceship called Earth, hurtling through the void, and we are fighting in the cockpit. This realization changed his philosophy. He stopped caring about the rat race. He stopped caring about climbing the ladder of success. He realized that the true destination of Apollo 11 wasn't the moon. We went to the moon to discover the Earth. We left our home to realize how much we missed it. This is why, when the tour ended and the confetti was swept away, Michael Collins made a decision that shocked everyone. He walked into the office of Deke Slayton. Deke was the boss of the astronauts. The godfather. Deke looked at Mike. He respected him. Mike was the best pilot in the Corps. He had flown the command module perfectly. Mike, Deke said, you're next in line. You can command Apollo 17. You can walk on the moon. It's yours if you want it. It was the golden ticket to go back, to put his own boots on the dust, to become one of the moonwalkers. Most men would have killed for that offer. Michael Collins looked at DK. He thought about the 3 years of training, the hotels, the simulators, the absence from his family. He thought about his wife, Pat. He thought about his children. He thought about the fishing rod sitting in his garage. He thought about the quiet mornings with a cup of coffee. He looked at Decky and said, "No thanks, Dick. I'm done." He retired. He was 39 years old. He was at the peak of his career, and he walked away. Why? Because he knew something that many people never learn. He knew what was enough. He had seen the show. He didn't need to be the star. He wanted his life back. Michael Collins left NASA in 1970. He didn't become a recluse. He didn't hide in a cave, but he chose a path of service, not celebrity. He became the Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs. A desk job, a hard job during the Vietnam War era. He wanted to help fix the spaceship Earth. Then, he took on a project that was close to his heart, the National Air and Space Museum. If you have ever been to Washington, D.C., you have seen it. It is one of the most visited museums in the world. It holds the spirit of Louis. It holds the Wright Flyer. It holds Columbia, his own ship. Michael Collins he lobbied Congress for the money. He oversaw the construction. He made sure it was finished on time and under budget. He built a cathedral for the sky. He would walk through the construction site in a hard hat. Sometimes workers would recognize him. "Aren't you?" "Yes." He would smile. "I'm Mike." He would look at Columbia, sitting there on a stand, scorched and black from the re-entry. He would touch the metal. He remembered the cold. He remembered the 48 minutes of silence. But he didn't live in the past. He wrote books. His autobiography, Carrying the Fire, is considered the best book ever written by an astronaut. It is poetic, funny, and deeply human. He wrote it himself. No ghostwriter. He sat at a typewriter in his garden, listening to the birds, and poured his soul onto the paper. He painted. He loved watercolors. He painted the Florida Everglades. He painted his fishing trips. He rarely painted the moon. The moon was gray and dead. He loved color. He loved the green of the leaves, the blue of the water, the red of the sunset. He realized that he had spent his life trying to get away from Earth, only to realize that Earth was the paradise. The post-Apollo blues that haunted Buzz Aldrin didn't touch Mike. Buzz struggled with depression and alcoholism. He felt he had peaked too soon. Mike didn't feel that way. For Mike, Apollo 11 was just a chapter. A glorious chapter, yes, but not the whole book. He found joy in the small things. He loved to run. He ran marathons. He ran triathlons well into his 60s. He loved the feeling of his heart beating, his lungs filling with air that was free, air that didn't come from a tank. He loved the feeling of gravity. He was a man at peace. Let's go back to the concept of loneliness. Throughout his life, reporters kept asking him the same question. Were you lonely behind the moon? And every time, he would try to explain the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a feeling of lack. It is missing someone. It is sadness. Solitude is a state of being. It is being alone with yourself. And if you like yourself, if you are at peace with your thoughts, solitude is a joy. Michael Collins liked himself. He was comfortable in his own skin. He compared the command module to a miniature cathedral. It was his sanctuary. I had a happy home, he said. I had the best seat in the house. He taught us that being the third man isn't a consolation prize. It is a unique vantage point. Neil and Buzz saw the rocks. Mike saw the context. Neil and Buzz were down in the canyon. Mike was on the mountaintop. He saw the whole circle. As he grew older, he became a symbol of wisdom. While other astronauts went into politics or business, Mike stayed in his garden. He fished. He would sit on a boat in the Florida Keys, casting a line into the water, waiting for a bite. Silence. Just the sound of the water. It was the same silence he found behind the moon. But this time, the sun was warm. The air was sweet. He realized that you don't need a rocket to find peace. You can find it anywhere. You just have to be willing to be alone. You have to be willing to disconnect. In a world that is becoming louder, faster, and more chaotic, Michael Collins stands as a beacon of quiet. He reminds us to look up, but he also reminds us to look inward, to find the dark side of our own moon, and to not be afraid of what we find there. Time is the ultimate gravity. It pulls on everything. It pulls on mountains, grinding them to sand. It pulls on stars, burning them to ash. And it pulls on heroes, turning them into memories. 50 years passed. The young man with the dark hair and the quick smile turned into an old man with white hair and a face lined by the sun. Michael Collins moved to Florida. He spent his final years near the ocean. There is a poetic symmetry in this. The man who sailed the ultimate black ocean of space returned to the blue ocean of Earth. He would spend his days fishing. Imagine him there, an old man in a small boat, bobbing on the gentle waves of the Gulf of Mexico. He holds a fishing rod. He waits. He is patient. He learned patience in the simulator. He learned patience circling the dark side of the moon. The water laps against the hull. Slap, slap, slap. The sun beats down on his shoulders. He is happy. People walking by on the shore might see him and just see a retiree, a grandfather enjoying the afternoon. They wouldn't know that those eyes, squinting against the glare, had once seen the Earth shrink to the size of a marble. They wouldn't know that those hands had steered a spaceship through the void. And Mike preferred it that way. He didn't live in the past. He didn't have a shrine to himself in his living room. He didn't wear his mission patch on his jacket. He lived in the now. But as he grew older, the world began to look back at him with a new appreciation. We realized that we had misunderstood him. For decades, we pitied him. The poor guy who didn't walk. But as the 21st century became louder, more chaotic, and more obsessed with fame, Michael Collins began to look like a sage. We started to realize that he wasn't the unlucky one, he was the lucky one. He was the one who saw the whole picture. He was the one who found peace. Tonight, in our final chapter, we walk with him to the end of the road. We say goodbye to the Voyager, and we answer the question that defined his life. When you have gone to the furthest edge of human experience, how do you come home? And, more importantly, where do you go next? The crew of Apollo 11 Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins, they were linked forever. The amiable strangers, Collins called them. They weren't best friends who went out for beers every Friday. They were colleagues, professionals, but they shared a bond that no other three humans shared. They had ridden the fire together. As the years turned into decades, they drifted apart physically, but the bond remained. They would meet for anniversaries, the 20th, the 30th, the 40th. They would stand on stages, grey-haired and stooped, waving to crowds that were younger than the mission itself. Mike was always the glue. Neil was shy. Buzz was eccentric. Mike was the diplomat. He cracked the jokes. He deflected the awkward questions. But mortality is a thief that comes for everyone. August 25th, 2012. The news broke. Neil Armstrong was dead. The commander, the first man, the icon, gone. It was a shock to the world. It was a shock to Mike. He wrote a simple, beautiful tribute. He was the best, and I will miss him terribly. With Neil gone, the triangle was broken. The empty seat that Mike had feared in 1969 was now real. It wasn't an empty seat in a capsule. It was an empty seat at the dinner table, an empty space in history. Mike continued on. He kept writing. He kept painting. He became a passionate advocate for a new mission, Mars. He believed we should stop obsessing over the moon. The moon is old news, he would say with a twinkle in his eye. Mars is the future. Mars is where the life is. He wanted the next generation to go further. He didn't want Apollo to be the peak. He wanted it to be the stepping stone. He wrote a book called Mission to Mars. He argued for it with the passion of a young engineer. He was 88 years old, and he was still looking forward. He was still the navigator, plotting the course for a ship he would never fly. He faced his own mortality with the same phlegmatic acceptance that served him well in space. He knew the odds. He knew the systems were failing. But he didn't fear the end. He had already practiced it. Remember the 48 minutes behind the moon? Remember the absolute silence? He knew what lay in the dark. He knew it wasn't scary. It was just quiet. April 28, 2021. The world was still reeling from the pandemic. We were all isolated. We were all separated by glass walls, just like the astronauts in quarantine. And on a quiet Wednesday morning, the news came. Michael Collins had passed away. He was 90 years old. His family released a statement. It was perfect. It reflected the man. He spent his final days peacefully, with his family by his side. Mike always faced the challenges of life with grace and humility, and faced this, his final challenge, in the same way. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. It wasn't just Americans who mourned. It was the world. People posted photos of the Earth. His view. They posted the famous picture of the Lunar Module with the Earth in the background, circling the one man who wasn't in the frame. Now he is in the photo, someone wrote. It was a profound thought. He had finally joined the rest of us. Or perhaps we had finally joined him. NASA released a tribute. We have lost a true pioneer and a lifelong advocate for exploration. Buzz Aldrin, the last survivor of the trio, wrote, "Dear Mike, wherever you have been or will be, you will always have the fire to carry us to new heights and to the future. We will miss you. May you rest in peace." But there was no funeral pyre like Laika. There was no tragic explosion like Challenger. It was a gentle exit, like the command modules slipping silently into the atmosphere. He didn't burn up, he just faded into the blue. He had requested a simple burial, no massive monument. But in a way, he doesn't need a monument. Go outside tonight, look at the moon. Look at the dark side, the side you can't see. That is his territory. That is Collins' country. Whenever you feel alone, whenever you feel like you are on the outside looking in, whenever you feel like the designated driver while everyone else is partying, remember him. Remember that the man who was furthest from Earth was also the man who loved it the most. He proved that you can be alone without being lonely. He proved that silence is not empty, it is full of answers. Why does his story matter so much to us? Why, more than 50 years later, do we find comfort in the story of the guy who stayed in the car? Because Michael Collins represents the reality of the human condition. Most of us will never walk on the moon. Most of us will never be the CEO, the president, the rock star, or the name in the history book. Most of us are the supporting cast. We are the mothers and fathers who raise the children. We are the teachers who grade the papers. We are the engineers who build the bridges. We are the ones who wait. Collins dignified that role. He showed us that the supporting role is actually the essential role. Without the command module, the Eagle is just a metal coffin. Without the person waiting at home, the explorer has nowhere to go. He gave us permission to be quiet. In a world that screams for attention, where everyone wants to be an influencer, where everyone wants to be the first, Michael Collins whispers, "It is okay to be the third. It is okay to do your job, do it perfectly, and then go fishing. It is okay to find joy in the solitude." He taught us the value of the Boveview effect without leaving our armchairs. You don't need a rocket to see the Earth as one. You just need to close your eyes and listen. We are all on this ship together. We are all orbiting a star, traveling through a hostile void, protected by a thin layer of gas. We are all astronauts. And tonight, as you lie in your bed, you are in your own command module. Your room is your capsule. The darkness outside is the cosmos, and you are the pilot. You are safe. All systems are green. The trajectory is nominal. You can let go of the controls. The computer will fly you through the night. Let us drift now. Let us leave the history books and the biographies behind. Let us go back to that window in Colombia. Imagine you are Mike. You are floating weightless in the dark. The air is cool and still. The only sound is the rhythmic hum of the oxygen fans. Whir, whir, you look out the window. The moon is a giant silent presence below you. Craters upon craters. Grey dust. Ancient stillness. It is sleeping. You glide over the surface. You pass over the sea of tranquility. You pass over the ocean of storms. You are flying over billions of years of history. And then you slip into the shadow. The sun disappears. The earth disappears. You are in the night, but it is not scary. The stars come out. They are brighter than you have ever seen them. Millions of diamonds scattered on black velvet. They are not twinkling. They are steady. They are watching you. You feel a connection to them. You realize that you are not made of different stuff than they are. The atoms in your hand, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, it was all forged in the center of a star that exploded long ago. You are stardust that has learned to think. You are the universe looking at itself. You feel a sense of expansion. Your worries, your stress, your to-do lists, they seem so small now. They are down there, on that tiny blue marble. But you are up here. You are huge. You are part of the infinite. You feel the presence of Michael Collins. Not as a ghost, but as a guide. He is smiling. He is pointing out the constellations. Cassiopeia, Orion, the Big Dipper. He tells you that the silence is a blanket. Pull it around you. Wrap yourself in the velvet of the cosmos. It is soft. It is warm. It is protective. You are not alone in the dark. You are held by gravity. You are held by light. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. The orbit is complete. The ship is turning for home. But you don't have to wake up. You can stay here in the drift. Feel your body becoming heavy. Heavier and heavier. Just like the G-forces of re-entry, but gentle. It is the gravity of sleep pulling you down, sinking into your mattress, sinking into the safety of the earth. The parachute is opened. You are floating down, slowly, softly, through the clouds. The white clouds are wrapping around you like cotton. The noise of the world is muffled. There is only the sound of your own breathing, in, out, in, out. You are landing on a calm ocean. The water is warm. The waves are rocking you. Back and forth, back and forth. The third man has signed off. The mission is a success. The capsule is secure. The hatch is closed. You are safe inside. Let the darkness fill the cabin. Let the stars fade. Let the silence take over. Rest now, traveler. The fire has been carried. The night is yours. Good night, Mike. Good night, Earth. Good night.